welcome to Upstage Downstage, with him, Richard Platt, seated in the upper circle.
And him, Stephen Rees, typically seated in the cheap seat.
This is the Theatre Podcast, where we discuss productions we've seen,
Things we've liked,
and may not have liked,
giving our complete unprofessional
and non-biased opinions.
So grab a brew,
Take a seat,
and let's raise that curtain.
On today's episode, we'll be discussing Dear Evan Hansen. We saw this production at Nottingham Playhouse on the 13th of September 2024. Ambassador Theatre Group Productions and Nottingham Playhouse bring to the stage this new production for a major UK tour, directed by Nottingham Playhouse's artistic director Adam Penford, music and lyrics by Benj Pasek and Justin Paul, and booked by Stephen Levens. Dear Evan Hansen has swept the stage with a collection of accolades, having clinched 6 Tony Awards, a Grammy, and the Olivia Award for Best Musical. So Richard, what's it all about?
Meet Evan, an anxious high school kid who wants nothing more than to fit in. The thing is, on his way to fitting in, he didn't tell the whole truth, and now he must give up on a life he never dreamt he'd have. As events spiral and the truth comes out, Evan faces a reckoning with himself and everyone around him.
But first, our post-show opinion!
A thought-provoking piece of theatre.
You'll find a good musical with this one.
So with all that said, let's
Set the scene!
Okay, Richard, would you like to set the scene for Dear Evan Hansen?
So when we...
We normally start with walking into the auditorium.
Are we going to walk into this auditorium?
Purse first.
Shall we walk into the auditorium?
Yes.
So we walked into the auditorium and you couldn't see any of the set because they'd covered it over with a basic black
Gauze
and just there was a hashtag across the bottom just for people to share and create a bit of a buzz about the production, because and I also sometimes feel like it's quite confident when they hide the set away from you until you actually see the production start, because sometimes
they don't want you finding out everything all in one go.
No, and I think it's certain productions don't lend themselves to wanting to see everything before you see what actually happens on stage. So,
however, because I suppose this goes on to it has many scenes.
Yes,
it's not like a static set either.
No, it isn't. No, it's very much. Well, the scenes and set changes happen quite a lot and quite quickly. So there's a lot happens. This is a production that's predominantly about moving revolving doors that are. There's a lot of perspex and plexiglass kicking around on this stage. Mm-hmm. It felt a bit like a conservatory. I think that's the biggest way to describe it.
Yeah, whilst we're talking about the set then, because I don't particularly have much to contribute as such, when we saw Minority Report, which was a Nottingham Playhouse production, I felt like they were repurposing the stage of that one, because this felt very much similar.
Yes,
they just put different images up and different things moving about. So it did feel slightly samey in terms of set.
You've got a projection video wall at the back that was that basically created the backdrops to all the scenes almost, and then as you say, the perspex screens, they'd got a mottled effect on them to look almost like bathroom windows, where you couldn't actually fully see through them, but it just broke up the stage. But it was very similar to what happened in Minority Report. So know when you've seen one production, you see a similar style of design between the two.
Go on.
I can see why they did it, because the original production was a very bare stage and almost modern technology.
Was it quite similar to this, the original one that you saw?
There was a lot of mirrored wall used to reflect the light on stage as well, and makes it look modern. It was all meant to be more about the cast on stage than a lot. There was not much of a backdrop behind any of the scenes, really.
No.
It was almost the strength of the props that were brought on that created each space that somebody was in, really. I think that was the key thing on this.
Yeah. Well, is there anything about the set that you quite found interesting, that was different or something along those lines?
I like the use of the video walls, because there was hidden video portions within this to sort of back up some of the certain scenes.
That was good.
I like the strength of it in the sense of they didn't really over-egg the scenery, so you spent more time looking at the characters than you did the sort of backdrops. There was only a few bits where I thought some of the projections were a bit dull and a bit boring. That didn't, there's some of the colour use was a little bit too subdued for my liking, a little bit.
I will say,
There was a few bits where it was a bit brown and beige, and it just... I know why they did it, but there was a couple of bits where I thought they could have picked some better greens or some better browns for...
Why did they do it that way then?
It was to highlight the cast. It was to bring them up more. Because if you subdue everything around them, they pop out in what they're wearing, and that's the... I think it's more about that. It creates your focus looking at the people on stage rather than the actual set behind them.
Yeah.
A bit like when you look at the bed and the kitchen area and things like that, they all stood out more because they were brighter in colour, and also takes away from the final scene because that's all very nature and natural. So it's a very different contrast when that final scene appears.
I don't really know what to say in regards to the set because it was very... a typical set. This is something you see in a lot of plays that don't set themselves in one particular area, location.
Yeah.
They have things wheeled on, wheeled off, changed around and moved all over the place. So that was quite average, really. Nothing... There was no, I can't remember there being any kind of issues or technical issues in terms of getting the set on or off or anything. Everything just went swimmingly as far as...
Yeah, nothing was out of place at the point where it needed to be, really.
Yeah. It's strange in a way because I can't particularly praise anything for being great. Like, wow, look at that. When it was just all right. It served its purpose, which is nothing wrong with that. I suppose it wasn't about that. It was more about the storyline itself.
Yeah, definitely.
Really. But again, just... as I'd already mentioned, having watched Minority Report and knowing it's the same director, same production company doing it, you're aware of repurposing sets, which these things happen.
Yeah.
But, it was noticeable for me.
I mean, also, what I will say is...
you will you?
Yeah. You can tell that this set has been made so it can transport. Mm-hmm. Because they can't overly make it any more technical than it is because you've got to put it all in a lorry.
Well, the Minority Report did
that
as well, wasn't
it?
It
Exactly.
was transportable. Yeah.
You've got to be able to pack it all away and take it to the next venue and rebuild it, and it's got to fit in a multitude of theatres. So, it's like some of the artwork that's like the mirror bit that I was talking about.
Well, they were on rigs, weren't they?
Yeah, so you can sort of make them fit any space rather than it being... it's got to be transportable. You have to do different things than you would say in London because London's fixed for so many months. So you can fix things in place, whereas this has got to be picked up and moved. So I can see why they did what they did with this piece. Yeah.
Let's just move along now because I don't think there's anything more we can add about the set. It was okay. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the writing here. What's your thoughts on this? Because I remember we had, I wouldn't say like a heated argument, but there was a bit of a disagreement in terms of the play at the time, in the interval, about it, because I saw something completely different. I mean, we saw the same play.
Yeah, we saw the same play.
But what's the overall consensus of this play, and why is it so well regarded like that?
It's a good question because I think one thing that in some ways, some people can see different things in this production. So it gets a bit of a cult following. It's one of those musicals that's got a cult following for seeing almost reflections of people's own lives and how there are certain elements where you lie to fit in. Yeah. Or you lie to be part of a group, or you lie...
To make life easier.
To make life easier, yeah. And I think that's where I was saying that I can see some parallels in, when you go through school life, people have to say things that they don't necessarily want to say, but it means you're still within your group, or you still, but you also have to hide some of your personality or some of, so it's quite an interesting. I think we had quite an interesting debate, if I remember right, because it's like the song "Waving Through a Window."
Yeah,
that is all about seeing everybody else's lives from a distance, and you're the person that's, almost hiding behind a phone. Waving through a window is the same thing. You're waving at a device that's a window or a screen into other people's lives, and you're never crossing over into that realm.
Yeah.
And there's also some references where you can be looked at that, some people have seen it that if you interpret this in a way that it looks like somebody hiding sexuality, because they're hiding behind a facade of complete made up world, because they're not dealing with something deeper down. And I think that's where the whole cult following comes from, and things where people see
it's got a
more
double meaning.
Yeah, because yes, it's quite because the storyline is quite strange. To live such a deep lie through this whole facade that you're befriending somebody that's committed suicide that you've never really interacted with, but because they wrote their name on your cast, you've basically turned that into a complete fantasy world.
Yeah.
And nobody can corroborate that.
Yeah.
That actual storyline. A bit like Fall Forever, where they talk about going to a park and they talk about going and spending time together and living this fantasy dream world. It can also look at parallels of sexuality, where you see more in a friend than you thought there was.
Yeah,
and it's that.
So it's like a one-sided,
yeah,
unrequited love thing that you've just dreamt up.
Yeah,
in your
and
mind.
I broke my arm because I fell out of a tree and he came and saved me. It's that whole fairy tale world that.
So the story is basically having two different visions of how you look at things. I suppose that's why the audience then. You get two sides looking at it, thinking, "What's this?" and "Oh, this is that." And
it's not always that it's a perfect fit, but you see sort of things in it that resonate. I mean, for me personally, growing up gay when I was in school, you got very quick at lying about certain things to detract or distract from. It wasn't big lies; there were just some things where you'd distract by talking about somebody else,
or you wouldn't talk about
somebody else, but you'd talk about. Ask somebody else how they are to distract from the fact that you've got you wanted to say something, but you're just not confident enough at that point to say it. So it really sort of it shows you how, and you have to. But and I think this is where it shows that throughout the production, Evan just has to think on his feet and be creative and lie. Like he's making it up as he's going along, but he's making the lie. He's making the lie bigger and bigger and bigger, and he's getting his world trapped in this, and I think this shows. I'm talking quite low level, little lies, whereas this is showing you what happens if you go to the next level and lie, and it becomes a monster, and it snowballs into something that you haven't got control over.
Our first disagreement, I suppose, when I was trying to get my thoughts together after the first act, I said, it's given me heathers in the context of a dark and brooding character that you can't quite understand or get to know.
Yeah.
And the consequences of things happening, they end up like killing someone, and then it sort of escalates and stuff like that. So there's a bit of like an escalating there with the dark and brooding person who's just like not fitting in, like the misfit.
Yeah.
And then I was also thinking along of the two guys that ended up dying, and the story was made up. Oh, they must have been gay.
Yeah.
So then that escalated. I think, oh, they were gay or whatever when they weren't.
Yeah.
So I was trying to like
compute, and
also trying to relate it to something and seeing if there was any similarities and stuff like that. But I think coming out of this, my main point was, are we seeing things in something that just isn't there just because we want to see them there? For a start with that whole the gay line there.
Yeah.
And also the whole lying and then, stopping that lie with another lie and whatever, that's just a classic sort of like trope to screwball. So it doesn't sort of like, it doesn't like excite me or go, wow, whatever on that one. But my main point was this whole play has happened just because of the one guy read that diary entry to himself and assumed, it's on the assumption, that he was taking the mick out of him, and then he commits suicide. But then they don't seem to go into why was he feeling like that? Why was he depressed? Why did he want to do that? It's sort of like, thought that was a setup, but the story's not about him, but about the escalation of someone else. And it just seemed a bit like, oh, that's that then, is it? It just seemed too whimsical of an excuse to put this whole play on something so,
I think,
small, so insignificant. Now, I don't know if that's the point of it. Do you know what I mean? That something so small could
I think that is the because
it didn't seem
Conor Murphy,
justified. It didn't seem enough.
Yeah. I mean, Conor Murphy and Evan never actually rub shoulders until that moment where he signs his cast.
Well, they bump into each other in the locker, don't they?
But that's it. You know what I mean? That's the only, like, there's literally, there's no other
so everything else is made up.
But I think that maybe this version where Conor Murphy, they do build his character up about him taking drugs and those things at the start, right at the start. But I don't think there was enough emphasis visually like I had in the version in London.
Right.
So, I mean, there was mic issues with the mum.
When she was singing.
So when she was singing at the point, because that's Conor Murphy's mum.
Yeah.
And there was mic issues at that point where they're actually escalating that part of it. And because anybody have a map, the opening song is basically two mums bringing children up, both very different, but also both very troubled. And it's like basically trying to show that.
So the person from a 2.4, sort of like a family, ends up troubled.
Yeah.
And the one who's single parent ends up fine.
Yeah, and that. But what it was showing is that. But I think that was where, because you hit so hard with the production at that point, it's so full on. Sometimes you can miss the fact that Conor Murphy's the one that's actually is troubled. He's disengaging from school. He's on drugs. He's this, that, and the other. And then you instantly.
And why is he like that?
Yeah, because he's just a wayward child that doesn't want to engage. But I think because then you suddenly thrust with writing on the cast, and you've almost Conor's then a ghost. That's where I think that bit just makes it very quick to not understand, because it is such a short scene in the first part of it, really. You know, those interactions as why he isn't engaging.
It's a weird one, because now we're talking about it, it just seems like there's an issue here for people who, like teenagers who don't want to fit in. They are slightly depressed, or they end up being depressed because they don't go down like a rabbit hole of being depressed, listen to The Cure, being not understood, or they feel they're not understood, or they've got their own things going on. And the family not talking to that character, the friends not talking to that character, so they're in isolation, they take their life. So that's quite a heavy subject. And then throw on that Evan Hansen and then all his lies. Well, that seems to be like a comedy and a whole laugh and a bit of a farce, adding more to that. So then it's like you've got this serious thing, but then there's this comedy farcical element of, oh, isn't this quite funny? Oh, this has gone on because of that.
It's sort of it's a few things though, isn't it? It's not just that. It's also because he got lost in the lie. Evan felt like he'd also got to comfort the family because they'd lost Conor, and he hadn't got a true family, so he almost replaced himself and placed himself in that family to be the substitute almost. Yeah. But he got a slight link that he was making stories up to assuage that loss, really. He
wanted to be wanted, and the other character didn't want to be wanted.
So they was like the replacement of, and it's almost fairy tale-esque in the sense of, wicked stepbrother comes in and takes over the life at the detriment of losing somebody. And I think from what I sort of read, I think this was all came about because when social media became big and it became in its early stages, there was, in America, things were getting a bit crazy. Child suicide has, you're going through the phases of people divorcing their parents in America and people like, living in very strange ways where they're feeling bullied and not dealt with, and in bullying on social media got huge. So I think this was I think the way this was written was just to try and encapsulate
Yeah,
all
this
of
was coming
that.
off the back of that wave.
Really, in the early days, because this was written well before, because the Pasek and Paul wrote Greatest Showman and La La Land, so this was before all of that. So this was quite a while ago. So it's a certain specific time. I mean, let's face it, that we're using printers that we don't use now. Rooted in the core, let's face it, Evan Hansen wants to do good in this surreal created world that he's got deeper and deeper into.
Yeah, I think that's the moral side of his character trait. He wants to do good and be good and make people happy or feel better about themselves, but in turn lands himself in the crapper.
But also with the interactions of his cousin and also all the children at school, where they fuel the fire to create this sort of
illusion.
Well, they don't know what they don't know themselves that it's a lie. So they've all bought into the fact
Well, they're
that
assuming, aren't they? Because
they're like Connor's parents. Because he was a wayward child, nobody really knew Connor. So I think what this is showing is deep down there was almost a charitable side where you're going to help so many other people talk. It's a bit like the making people feel wanted, and that there's so many other kids out there that want to be heard and that need a voice. And it had the best intentions, but deep down, Evan was hiding a deep lie that he was lost in then. So what we saw really is the complete acting out of the what if.
yeah,
This was real. It was a true thing.
because he also started to like the sister.
It started to date the sister, really, and like the sister and weave his way into the sister. And then it becomes...
That sounds really weird.
Well, it doesn't it? Weave his way.
You don't want to weave your way into... No.
Yeah, because even the song If I Could Tell Her looks at what Connor Murphy would tell his sister, when really it was a way for Evan to get closer to Zoe, really. And that was the weird... As nice as it was to try and calm Zoe down because she was going through a hard time losing her brother, he's actually manipulating the entire situation to get even closer, get what he wants, really.
Which is like, in a way, it comes across as a bit like a sitcom episode of something, doesn't it? Like something.
But then also Serial Killers Anonymous, where it's like telling you
all that.
Yeah, exactly. It's showing you how manipulative somebody can be because they have created this persona and lie that doesn't exist, and it could be replicated on other things. You hear lots of stories, like you say, sitcom-esque, or these things happen. People do live lies, and they'd live more lies now on social media and dating apps and things like that.
Oh, they
now.
can say what they want now without any fear of any consequences.
You wouldn't find out what somebody's in, like what they're really like, until you get to know them, and even then you might not know that because I think this is all before the catfishing eras of people completely being telling lies through it. So, and then we sort of end Act 1 with You'll Be Found, which is just a call to action for anybody to talk about everything, really, and just be honest and to open themselves up, not hide away and run away from situations.
Can you see the difference between where people are coming from with this? Like the people who really love it, or the kids who can relate to it because they feel sort of like depressed as well. Yeah. And also those who are thinking, like a bit like me, it's like this is a bit...
Yeah, and I think because if you take away the bad lies and the horrible lies that Evan says, the songs on their own stand up and give quite a strong message that if you heard them on their own, they've got some strength in what they mean. It's such a weird thing to say, isn't it? That it's like... It's a weird production if you actually step back and read the storyline as in, this person's lied to get everything. When actually, why is that good, or why is this, that and the other? But if you take it away from that and create it, I think that's why it becomes a bit of a on-edge cult production, because it's a bit like, it's double meanings.
It's like How to Get Away with Murder.
It is.
Something like that,
it is, yeah. It is. It's like, how to be the perfect dictator, or how to, because that...
Well, you know, we in a couple of years' time, we're probably going to see a Fringe show about Rachel Reeves, allegedly, forging her CV to get where she is. Do you know what I mean? It could be something.
Well, yeah, but,
you never know.
You have to look at, things... how do people become creative? Lying is used a lot of times in a lot of things, you know. Let's say, you know, even the budget announcements. We say we're going to not cut tax for employed people, but we're going to rise the business taxes. That's going to directly affect them, but we're not doing what we said we were going to.
Of course,
It's all creative lying on the spot, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's going off into a different tangent.
But what I mean is, it's a
they
very...
don't realise the repercussions of that, do
No.
they? The
No.
fact that, oh yeah, we won't tax you, but we'll increase national insurance tax, which means the businesses aren't going to employ many people now because they can't afford it. So more unemployment.
Yeah.
Oh,
but then,
or up the prices.
But then, interestingly, I talked about a cult following for this production. Essentially, you'll be found that Evan Hansen performs doing a presentation where he's talking to a big audience live on YouTube. What's different to that than Elon Musk telling everybody a load of things? Or what's that different to a great leader in another place, or somebody that's telling you, like, you know, you could even reference it, Hitler, telling you things that you don't want to hear. There's so many things that you could look at it and go. I think for me is Act 2 when Evan does the breaking gloves scene with Connor's dad. It's like really stepping over the line then. Yeah,
that I remember that one significantly, because that was the moment where he was trying to fit in and be more.
And be the son.
Be the son.
Yeah, it's not even like he's a friend.
It's not even, it's you really are moving in now with all your bags.
Yeah,
Right.
really everything.
You're becoming more than the actual person was. It reminds me of quite a few films, actually, that do that. Like, you know, the stepmother coming in and then somehow being or the girlfriend trying to take the place of the wife who's sort of like ill, and then she's becoming everything and anything. You know?
And she may as well be switching off the life support in the background as well.
Yeah.
You know,
what film was that? I don't know. But there's always that.
But
kind of,
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like that's almost the cringy moment of like, here we go. They've got even worse. They've got it deeper. The nails are in deeper. You know. And especially when obviously Zoe and Evan get together seriously, and then that becomes even deeper. And I think that, and then obviously after those two songs, it all goes downhill then because the truth comes out and
well, it's got to
all the lies.
Once you hit like that, you've got to have the unravel of everything.
Yeah, and that's when you get Good For You, where and words fail, and I think it does it in such a way that it doesn't leave any stone unturned. It happens how you expect it to. You know, the parents disown Evan, and so does Zoe, but they've been through trauma, and it's quite interesting that the final part is where Zoe actually is on a level with Evan, but in control of the situation.
But she can only ever do that by going through all that trauma and torment and realisation of that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that Evan would still have the upper hand.
Yeah.
It's very well written in terms of plot points, plot beats, and including the musical scores and everything, the twists, the turns, the pushes, and
it's a little bit like the other plot twist as well was the bit where Evan's mum goes round to the parents' house, where Connor's parents say they're going to pay for his education and everything like that. And he's done all that, spoke to them behind his mum's back, and his mum understandably reacts in a way that's like, but I can afford your education I can this, that and the other. You've just now dug yourself deeper into that world that you're disowning your own parents for.
Yeah, exactly. So that's fueling the fire of the lie, but what that is, that's like the pinch moment, the bit where
it's almost ultimate transfer.
You're pushing, again, getting this person into more trouble.
Yeah,
it's like one step forward, two steps back, sort of.
But it's almost realising how much of the lie we're living in now, because we're actually pushing our own parents away to the point of like our own flesh and blood doesn't matter.
And also
at
opening
that point.
up them to realise that something's not quite right. So he can he can be manipulative or secretive or a bit of a liar. So now you've got like an outside voice coming in saying, well, I don't recognise that person, that's this and the other.
Yeah.
You've got the counterbalance, which I would say is why you should always listen to two sides of the story.
Exactly, there should always be.
Because if you start listening to one side, you're going to be in an echo chamber
of
whatever. And I mean that throughout everything in your life.
Exactly.
You'll start believing something that probably is a lie.
Yeah.
And we've all been there, have we not?
We all have, in a lot
couple
of
of-
things in life, you know.
Well,
But I think it, like you said about writing, the fact that those things are written into this makes. I think that's where I talk about this has got a following that looks at it from a different perspective as well, because there's so much in it, and it does take you to a place that you can realise people will reflect on their own lives on it, and where it could have sent them if they'd done something, because everybody's lied of some description, or done like white lies, or to protect themselves, or misdirect, shall we say.
yes, but even if something bad happened, you can say, oh, I wish I did this, or if I hadn't have done this, or whatever. You can see before you as it's played out in real time.
Yeah.
That's why I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Whatever,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it is good for that kind of thing. But as I say, that the whole writing thing, it was well written. My snag would probably be it's probably a bit too based too much on an ill-conceived idea, in terms of it was all about what that person kind of read.
Yeah.
So the believability there.
It was quick.
It was
very quick to make the judgment, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's like, was that believable? Had there been more
of a build-up?
We saw a few things, so we saw his life be a bit more. Why was he, more bullying or something going along, and that other thing was just part of it or something, just to give a reason.
Even
why,
if there was
rather
other
than just
reactions
gloss
with other school kids, as in, because we only saw one interaction with him and school children, and other people he went to school with.
Yeah,
there was nothing else in the lockers, by the lockers or anything like that.
Yeah, and I suppose what it means is you've got no reason to care for that person passing away, which is fine.
It didn't feel as shocking as it maybe could have. It could have felt more like, oh, I didn't expect that to happen. Then the rest of the, then it'd have unravelled more.
Yeah, I suppose because you can't relate to that person, and so if anybody dies, it's like, okay.
I think personally,
fine,
you relate to him more after he's died, because he's still in the production and still talking, and you get more of
which is
a
again
personality.
Like Heathers, what I was referring to Heathers.
Yeah. But you get more of a personality out of it because he's developed further in answering the letters, or when they do the scene where they're writing the letters to make things up. It's like, that's the bit that...
Yeah, but he had more of a personality when he was dead.
Yeah.
Did I miss something in terms of why he did it? Does it explain why he did it, or what a lot more...
Why he did it was because I think that was meant to be the final straw, because he was drug taking, he was not engaging with his family or doing anything, because the bit where Zoe was talking about, like, when Evan was trying to woo her to sort of say, this is what Connor would say, she kept going, well, he wouldn't say that, and he wouldn't say that, and it's like he just manipulated his way into saying, yeah, he did say that, so it was almost like...
But again, why was he taking the drugs, though? Why was he...
Well, he was just one of those kids that was off the rails and never went to school. And I think that's what I was trying to say.
I think that's probably why I have issues
and his
with
parents
it, really.
And his dad didn't engage with him. And there was loads of that, because if you think about the breaking the glove bit, he'd never done that with his son.
No.
So it was like there's definitely a disconnect with the family, and they just couldn't make him hold down going to school, and they couldn't...
So this is what it came across like. They were more bothered about the lie of what they could have had than the loss that they did have.
Yeah, that's
I think that's where...
And that's what
I'm
it is.
bit...
It's like his son was quite disposable. The parents'
exactly.
son was disposable, Even though they didn't want him to go, but when he did go, they were like, we'll move this other child in, almost.
Yeah, and even if your child is like not really responsive, not really interacting with anything, the fact that they didn't notice it, or they're not even...
It was almost like because
bothered.
his sister engaged and did everything she should do, why is he not the same? And it was almost like, it's almost really very dismissive. But it's very interesting because...
I suppose when you said expendable, sums it up about... Right, really.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
you can have those characters.
Yeah,
don't get me wrong. You
exactly.
can or whatever.
And I think as well, it also paints a picture that some families are quite superficial. Well, I don't know what to do with that child, or I don't know what to do with them, and then only until they've you know, some people go through that in their lives, you know. So, but I just think, like, I agree with you in the sense of it was very quick that that he's gone. You know,
I felt like are the family
you know.
just completely forgetting that whilst what was he 16, 17?
16, 17,
something
yeah, it was
around
high
then.
school, wasn't it? So.
He wouldn't have always been like that, surely. All those memories of him being a little kid, going out playing or whatever, you know, being happy before.
Yeah. Even if you'd have gone through the moments of everybody hates me and nobody wants this, and we needed a bit more of that in it. Maybe that's in the writing.
To me, it just felt like they needed an excuse to fuel the fire for the plot thread to happen.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, that's just what I feel. Others can obviously disagree and think different things, but bearing in mind I've only seen this once.
Yeah, exactly.
So there we go. Right, moving on then. Shall we discuss the directing on this one?
Yeah.
Adam Penford, no stranger to us. I mean, stranger, obviously, because we don't know him.
Don't know him personally. but yeah, no
plenty
stranger.
of pantomimes and shows that he's done that we've seen.
I thought it was well directed.
He's a really good director.
And faithful to the aesthetics of this production, as in, you know, I saw the London production, and even though it was different in setup, it was very, very similar. I expected this sort of... It's almost a modern approach to it because there's not a lot on stage, but that creates more of a focus for Evan and the movement of... Because really, it's about Evan's journey through the production. They've got it in, journey.
Yes.
But I thought every character was who they should be because it's very easy to... not hit this with energy, but it's like Jared's character, you know, Jared being that sort of Evans in on the lie, talking about these things, not telling anybody else, but using it to enhance the lie, shall we say, because that's what Jared does. You instantly knew who each character was once they started performing.
Do you remember much about the musical dance numbers?
I mean, the only one that really was a dance number was the Jared, Conor Murphy, and Evan Hansen bit where they were where they were writing the emails, where they were basically creating a world that Conor would never have done, but it was the bit in Evan's bedroom where he's writing a load of junk really to fill the inbox of emails. And it's interesting because even Baby Reindeer could take reference from this production. With all the fake emails from a random email address and the world that it was created. So it did make me chuckle a little bit with the parallels. The production's not really got a lot of choreography elements in the sense of 42nd Street big dance numbers, or, you know, it's not got tap routines. It's just the songs. There's not really dance in the sense of that style. It's more of a choreographed, do things at certain times when you're singing the songs. There's not really, you know.
I have to say, as we're recording this, I can't remember much about the dance songs. I can't remember much about the songs, and I certainly can't remember much about any dancing or movements or anything like that.
I think because it was all done as they were doing the piece, they weren't actually... It was part of the acting, really. It wasn't really done as a... There was a lot of standing and singing the songs.
It probably just didn't need anything like that, and maybe that's probably why I just don't remember it.
Yeah.
Moving on to our next segment, as we say, we're here for the drama.
I thought it was well cast.
What did you think about the lead?
I thought the lead was good.
Yeah?
I thought he was engaging.
Just as good as the other.
Yeah, I actually saw the understudy when I saw it in London, and just as good. I think
was
for
Eddie
me,
Redmayne? Is that his name? Was he?
No, Sam Tutty was one of the main ones down in London.
Oh.
I mean, Eddie Redmayne might have done it. I don't know. I mean, for me, yeah, Ryan did a good job because he had that awkward geekiness that I think he needed to in the production, because he needs to almost be a little bit...
Yes, I thought Cillian Thomas Lefevre as Conor Murphy, he was really good as well.
He was really good.
Not only did he play the dead person really dead, he actually gave him life when he was alive.
He did. Yeah, he did.
Well,
he really did.
Ghostly apparition.
And
but
also,
it was quite funny, he played with it as well.
Yeah, Lauren Convoy was brilliant as Zoe Murphy, as well as Alice Fern as Evan's mum. I think they were all very strong. You know, Richard.
It was a good cast. It was a strong cast as well.
Helen Anker and Richard Hurst looked very much like a husband and wife. They were very much the Murphys. You know, I felt like the relationships were right. I felt like it was cast where you felt like they were related. And Jared was good. He gave you comic relief.
He ended up having a lot of stage presence, like a lot of energy. You could see why he was chosen for that role.
Yeah, definitely.
Because he just seemed to just jump out from the page of just being your regular, like your mum or your dad or your friend. He just seemed to... I think it's probably down to the character adding that, but he certainly gave it 110% in that
he did.
Field of just being wacky.
Yeah, he was out there.
Yeah.
And Vivian Panker, who played Alana, who was the... You know,
she was a friend friend of Connor's.
That became part of the You Will Be Fine movement or whatever. It was,
she set it up, didn't she?
Yeah, she set it all up and became like the director of it and whatever.
Well, she's the one that said, oh, well, if you're his friend because of something so trivial, then maybe so am I.
Yeah, exactly. And that was what it, So she was good. And then, you know, the ensemble cast, I'll be honest, they all added, they were all added to the energy. It was a high energy production in the sense of nobody really it never felt deflated at any point. They were all doing what they needed to do.
And also, it's funny now when we watch shows and it's mostly a musical and you've got the ensemble.
Yeah.
And you always think, so that person in the ensemble is going to be the main character. Yeah, they're going to play that one.
Always.
And playing that one. You know, they look like such and such. So she might be the mother, and she's
going to do that.
Mother of both or whatever. Yeah, it's quite funny when they do that.
Yeah, no, it does.
You just know exactly that.
You know where
they're
going
expendable.
To be. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
Any more on the actors?
I mean, I just felt like they all supported each other and worked really well together to put the production on, even with the few little technical things that we'll go through in a bit. They weren't fazed by that. They just carried on, and yes, you know, it's easy to say the show must go on and this, that, and other. However, little things can shake cast, and you can feel an energy drop. I didn't feel any energy drop through this, really, at all. You know, right to the end.
Yeah, exactly. It just went along quite pacey, actually.
I think as well, for me, the final scene where you strip everything back and you're in the orchard where you've just got trees.
Yeah, because that was done with a load of mirrors as well.
Yeah,
wasn't
it was. And it's a beautiful moment, but energy can drop very quickly in a scene like that. And they didn't drop the energy. You still felt like it was really powerful at that point. So, yeah. So, you know, hats off to him for doing that.
Props and costume.
I thought there were... It's hard with costume not to, when it's modern day, to go over the top, but I thought everybody had their own individual look, but it felt in the right... everybody jumped out from the stage, which was the aim, really, I think, for this.
Yeah.
But they didn't look like it was like we're wearing high-vis just to jump out and stand out. It felt natural. It felt like they're
contemporary.
Yeah. Props-wise, I mean, everything was, you know, nothing was out of place. There was a couple of prop moments where Evan's laptop wouldn't stay up. It was every time he flapped it back, it kept flapping about.
It's awful when that happens.
It is. It is. Yeah. So that doesn't help when that's happening, and he's meant to be looking at a screen, and the screen keeps moving as he's looking at it.
Nerves.
Yeah, it is the nerves. But no, I thought they didn't over-egg the props. They didn't go over the top. You know, everything felt right. Even down to the orchard trees at the back. They didn't feel like they were plastic trees from B&M. It felt like they were. Yeah. It felt like they were
natural
nice,
ones
natural
in buckets or something.
Natural trees.
Yeah.
Moving on to our next segment, as we say,
What the Tech Is This?
Yes, so we've already mentioned the mic issues of the mother singing.
And I will say I saw this production twice in this run.
Yeah.
And the mic issues in the same week, and the mic issues hadn't been fixed, which really winds me up because this production is doing a big tour.
Yeah.
You don't want to be having mic issues if you can't. You need to be. I almost felt like,
It's annoying when you, sorry to cut you off.
No,
It's
you're
annoying
right.
as an audience member when you're hearing someone try to sing or speak, and you can hear the little crackles and things of the mic, and nothing stopped. Nothing, they go off stage, they come back on, and it's still happening. It's like, you mean they didn't even give you another battery or another pack or something else?
It gets frustrating, even if it's another cable, even if it's another mic that plugs into the back of the cable. Double mic somebody if you're worried about it going wrong, because I just feel like it really cuts through a production. And that was also at the moment where Stephen was talking about like the dialogue between the son and this, and Connor, and when you've got the crackles and you can't hear somebody, and we weren't sat that far from the front, it wasn't like we were a long way from the front.
No, we were quite close, weren't we?
So that does get a little frustrating. The other thing we had, which also winds me up, is I don't know what the decision was made, but to use moving follow spots that are controlled by a...
I remember now. Yeah, it was automated.
It's automated follow spots, and all I can say is...
That's what you say.
They don't work.
No.
Because I've seen better versions of them work, but this one, they were lagged behind by a second or so, which sounds all right, doesn't matter. But when somebody's delivering, there was times when Evan's walking around a blank stage delivering a song, and the follow spot, it was in the dark because the follow spot didn't catch up with him. And then there was that moment where Jared jumps on the floor into darkness. And it's like, it took it away from, this is meant to be a production focusing on certain people on stage. And I felt like we just needed some general cover just to light them up so that they didn't get missed, because there was some bits where it's totally reliant on those follow spots, and it just felt just pointless. It just, there was a lot of dark faces because they were just missed by the light. And
there were shadow spots.
There were shadow spots. Yeah,
follow spots.
I agree
shadow
with that.
spots. Yeah.
And that just frustrated me, because I thought this is a production that has to be highly technical, so you can't afford for those things to go wrong. The other bits I did like were the projection use and the holding it back until the right point, so they didn't overuse it. So like all the social media posts and all that, for You Will Be Found, that came in at the right time because it came out of the blue. Rather than them using it all the way through, or, it felt nice because it just appeared at the right point. So I think that makes it better, because you don't overuse things. So there was a bit of a annoyance with the use of the conservatory walls that they kept bringing in. It got a bit repetitive after a bit, where they kept bringing them in, taking them back out again, bringing them in. There was one scene where I thought, we've just got to bring them in because we've got to take them back out again. It just felt a bit overused, a little bit. But no, overall it was okay. It's just those couple of technical bits I noticed. So.
And no gunshot.
No gunshot. And now it's time for our Rewind Rewatch.
Rewind Rewatch then, Richard. What would you like to rewind and watch again?
I mean, I'd watch it again.
Yeah. Or what particular part?
For me, it'd be You'll Be Found, because I thought that was a good interpretation of it, and that I could happily watch again.
I suppose I ought to watch it all again so I can remember what it was about.
What's the Ben Platt version?
No, I think I'd probably just go back and rewatch the father and son bit.
Yeah.
With the glove. Is it the glove bit?
Yeah.
I'll do that one.
Moving on to our final segment, as we say,
Call this a show?
For me, it's a very unique musical compared to a lot of musicals out there that the storyline is quite linear. This one's got a lot of twists and turns, and it's a lot of what ifs, what if this, what if that. So there's not many out there that have a level of storytelling that this does. So yeah, it's definitely one that always is in the background that I know about, that I can't really find something that compares with it, but it stands at a level with some of the other ones that are good.
For me, I felt it was an enjoyable musical. I thought it was really good. It certainly makes you question things and think about things. Yeah, I would see it again, but I wouldn't be in a rush to see it again, if that makes sense. Well, it should make sense. I don't even care if it doesn't make sense.
You've said it.
Yeah, I'll see what I want. Thank you very much.
And when I want to.
Yeah, what are me about? Yeah, I mean, I can understand the context of it and the what ifs and what have you. and the story unfolding or unraveling and being like going down like an avalanche of like lies, a bit like the whole Billy Liar-esque thing, but it's nothing new for me, and I think that's why it doesn't spark out anything or distill anything in me. Not distill. I don't mean distill at all. It doesn't bring out anything in me. I should have said disrupt. It doesn't disrupt anything in me. It doesn't move me. How about that? It doesn't move me.
You haven't had a movement while you've been sat here.
I'm just not moved. That's it. Now, what's your favourite song on this musical?
I've got a couple.
Go on, list them. Because I don't know if I've asked you one the first time you saw this in London. No,
well, you
let's
might
do it again
might
now.
have done. But anyway, we'll do it again. For me, it's Waving Through a Window, For Forever, and You'll Be Found. They're the ones that I end up singing more than I'd sing of the others.
For me, I can't remember any of them, so I can't, at this point, say again. As I say, I've only seen it once, and I don't know if I'll say it again. I don't know. You know, I think the surprise element's been taken away because I know what happens now.
Yeah,
But it's still got to be enjoying. It's still got to be enjoyable for me to watch again because I like it. Whereas this, it sort of like falls a bit flat, middle of the road for me.
I do want to see the Ben Platt version that's been filmed, so it's not on a stage. It's all actually real.
Movie.
It's a movie, so I'm
interested
to see it. Just to
is it a full-on movie or is it like a filmed stage version?
It's a full-on movie.
Oh, okay.
So I'll be interested to see how they translate it.
Yeah, I like
in that
Ben
way.
Platt. Well, maybe it's because of Ben Platt that people assume it's the gay
Maybe. It's interesting though because he did play it in Broadway. He was actually he did play the character, but he's a fully grown adult playing a. It's a bit like Grease, fully grown adult playing a 16, 17-year-old. But yeah, that'd be interesting to see, just to see the contrast.
Scores then, please, Richard, for Dear Evan Hansen. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being a self-help letter where nobody dies, and 1 being a friend request that could dramatically ruin your life. What's it going to be?
Just for the technical glitches, I'm going to give it 8 out of 10.
Yeah, it feels like it's an 8-ish sort of a number for this production. Doesn't it? Well, it does for me anyway. So yeah, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. So, what sound effect will you be choosing from the following? A complete train wreck? Tumbleweed? An audible shrug of the shoulders? A slow clap? A pleasant applause? Or a standing ovation? What will it be?
I'll give it a standing ovation. It deserves it. For saying this is a new interpretation of it.
For what went into it and everything, it was a really good show, so a standing ovation. So there we are. That's our discussion of Dear Evan Hansen. We hope you found it insightful.
If not, entertaining.
Stay tuned as we bring you more of our thoughts
and opinions
on many theatrical delights in future episodes.
If you'd like to get in touch, email us at upstagedowstagepod@gmail.com. You can always join in the chat to share with us your views of a production.
Also, make sure to follow, share, like and subscribe to all our channels so you get every episode the second it's released. And we hope you join us again for another instalment of
Upstage Downstage.
On today's... Am I doing the first bit then, I take it? On today's episode, we'll be discussing Dear Evan Hansen. We saw this production at Nottingham Playhouse on the 13th of September 2024.
The when?
It just... I'm putting my teeth in. Music and lyrics by Benj... It's Benj, isn't it?
It's Benj Pasek.
Music and lyrics by Benj Pasek and Justin Paul, with book by Stephen Leveson.
Levin.
And book by Stephen Levinson.
Meet Evan, an anxious high school kid who wants nothing more than to fit in. That was because I'm doing the whole sentence in one. No. Meet Evan, an anxious high school kid who wants nothing more than to fit in. Meet
Your
Evan.
teeth need to fit in.
No, mine do.
Mine
Remember, what did Patricia say? T's, D's and K's.
T's and K's.
Meet Evan, an anxious high school kid who wants nothing more than to fit in. thing is, meet Evan and Hanksius. As events spiral and the truth comes out, Evan faces a reckoning.
You need to go back and do that. And now must give up on a life he never dreamt he'd have. Because I think you said it all wrong.
And now must give up on a life he dreamt he'd never had.
No. A life he never dreamt he'd have.
Right, yeah. And now must give up on a life he never dreamt he'd have. As events spiral and the truth comes out, Evan faintens. Events.
Say it again.
Does that sound like? Is it better or worse?
Oh no, that's better. That's better than what it was.
Is it better here or here or here? It's like an eye test.
It is, yes. Okay, so we are recording now. We've back in the studio.
You're receiving me?
I'm receiving your.
What? The hook? Sorry.
Yeah. I don't know about the context, but yeah.
No, it was when we walked into the production, and it was the hook tour on the hashtag.
Oh yeah.
Is that what I'm going to talk about? The hook.
The hook.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to just
tip tapping on the window pane.